Hey guys, thanks for stopping back for this special two-part piece with Bix Weir in which we talk about the 20 reasons to sell, buy your silver.
Now, you released an article recently called 20 Reasons to Sell Your Physical Silver. Now, for people who haven't read it yet, Bix, should they be scared, or were you being just a little facetious?
There is a mind game going on in the physical gold and silver markets that the bad guys try to denigrate that investment. You'll hear it all the time. It's too high. It's just metal. You can't eat it. All kinds of things. And so I put this as the title, knowing that it might be a little controversial. The whole article is absolutely pro-silver and pro-owning silver, and it lists 20 reasons, 20 things that must happen before you sell your silver. But the funny thing is I've gotten emails from people who are panicked. There's such a panic in the market because the banks and the media are saying, sell, 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 it's in a bubble. I get emails from people panicked saying, what do you mean I'm supposed to sell my silver? Meaning that they saw the title
but didn't read it.
And they never read the article.
Right. Well, let's go through it just briefly. There's 20 great points. And the first one is the removal of the gigantic concentrated short position on the COMEX silver market is reported in the CFTC Commitment of Traders and Bank Participation Reports. Now, what you're saying there is that the all-time short position in the history of the commodities market is in silver, and it still remains in silver. And who are we talking about? J.P. Morgan there, Bix?
Well, Ted Butler has done a lot of research here, and it points to J.P. Morgan and HSBC working together type of thing. This is the big issue, and I ranked these 1 to 20 in the most important issues. And the reason this is the big issue, if you think back to 1980 when the Hunt brothers were busted for trying to corner the silver market, they owned at that time about 90 million ounces of COMEX contracts. The government came in, and that's how they lost their position. They had a bunch of physical as well, but they were long 90 million ounces on the COMEX. The government came in and shut them down and said, okay, no more buying silver, only selling silver. Within 2 months, the price went from $50 an ounce down to $10 an ounce, and the Hunt brothers were removed from that position. So the value of silver got cut by 1/5 by removing that 90 million ounces. It gives us a little benchmark of what will happen when the government comes in to remove J.P. Morgan from this position that's right now the J.P. Morgan or the two banks or whatever it is, their position is 125 million ounces short. So it's much larger than the Hunt brothers position. Now, when that is removed, will we get another 5 times the current price adjustment to get it back to fair market value? So 5 times $40. If they remove this position, which everybody is thinking the CFTC is about to do that, the price of silver will jump to $200.
And no one should fret if the CFTC doesn't take action. I'm convinced that they won't. I'm convinced that they're bought and paid for. I know there's some good people, at the CFTC, but hey, if they want to keep silver at 50 and 60 and it just slowly trickles up over the next year, that's fine with me because I can still afford to buy some here and there. Now, I was listening to an interview recently with Bill Murphy in which he said, as it relates to the poor Hunt brothers, the rules were changed midstream on them, and Bill made the point that if the rules were just enforced, as they sit on the books right now, J.P. Morgan would have to end that short position tomorrow.
That's true.
Yeah. Should we talk through some of these other points before we lose you?
Sure.
What are your favorite, maybe 2 or 3 that we should hit? Because I love them all. I mean, number 2 is the announcement of charges filed by the CFTC and the FBI, against J.P. Morgan for manipulation of the silver market. Number 3 is the shutdown of the iShares Silver ETF, which is just riddled with fraud for anybody that has read the prospectus. What are some of your favorites?
Let's start with the silver shares, the iShares Silver ETF, not the Sprott or the CEF or the other ones that are more legitimate, but just the SLV, which has this Swiss cheese-like prospectus, holes all over it. There are, I think, 360 million ounces or so attributed to that ETF. Those are investors who believe they bought shares, and because they bought shares, physical silver was put into that ETF. Now, when that starts to break down, for one reason or the other, for people pulling shares out or whatever it is, those investors who bought into the iShares ETF are going to try to get their money out and try to get the real stuff, buy physical. There is not enough physical in the world to cover those investors wanting to get in.
Right.
The effect that will have on the price if the SLV shuts down will be unbelievable. It will be crazy because I believe that SLV does not have all that physical silver to back up all their claims.
Right, and you and I have talked about this before. Now, we talk about such a small number of people that are actually trying to buy silver to protect themselves. And then of that small percentage of people, so many of them have chosen the SLV, and they think they actually have a diversified portfolio and have some measure of protection. They're in for a terribly rude awakening if that thing implodes, aren't they?
Yes, and the interesting thing that Ted Butler points out all the time is that people are allowed to short SLV as well. Right now, there's 20 million shares or ounces short on the SLV. So that's 20 million ounces that someone on the long side bought that somebody shorted. So that silver was never put into the SLV, and at some point they're going to have to close those out by putting physical metal in. So you go through the whole prospectus and how that is set up, and same with the GLD, the gold version of it, and stay away. If you're invested in it now, get out, go get yourself some real silver.
Yeah. Let's jump down to number 13 here, which I think is great. You write, the USGS alerts the world to the reality that at the real current silver consumption rates, there's less than 10 years of known below-ground silver reserves remaining in the world. That's a stunning, stunning fact, isn't it?
It is. Now, those numbers are fluid in that the USGS every year updates and changes the number and tweaks it, so it tends to rise. But right now it's at about 16 billion ounces is the total below-ground identified reserves, according to the USGS. The demand is kind of the big question mark, because you have these companies like the Goldfield Mineral Service, GFMS, who are the industry standards, who report on reserves and supply and demand. They're completely wrong. They've been wrong for years, and I think it was Eric Sprott who said he was giving a talk to a bunch of silver investors, and he said all the guys in this room have pretty much bought last year a lot more than GFMS is saying that the whole world bought, so we know those numbers are wrong.
Right.
So I believe the demand to be somewhere between 1 billion ounces and 2 billion ounces every year.
This concludes part 1, guys. Click here for part 2.